Welcome, music lovers, to PTV's The Performers, the show where we explore the vibrant music scene of North Shore, Massachusetts, by hosting local artists for a performance and interview to find out how they've made it a hobby, side hustle, or career. I'm your host, Maddie Wann, and this week we have a staple of the Boston area music scene. Please welcome Alex, Scott, and Ben of Pretty Rotten.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Welcome. So I've got to say your journey is kind of fascinating. It sounds like you guys kind of started as brothers performing, and it's blossomed into this whole scene. Can you give me a short history on where you started and kind of where you've gotten today?
Well, I think in the very day one, it was me and Scott in our living room with toy guitars and some kind of old classic rock playing in the background. And then as time went on, we realized that we love music so much and we wanted to learn how to play instruments for real. And we both actually started taking drum lessons with a guy in his basement. And we did that for a little while. Scott didn't like drums that much. I stuck with it, and then I got bored of it. And then we started going to this place called the Real School of Music in Burlington, where he learned to play guitar. I got back into drums, and there we kind of had our first experience with being in a band. Fast forward a few years, we were in a high school called Minuteman Technical High School in Lexington, and there was a music program there, and we happened to meet our friend here, Ben, and played in front of the whole school for a Christmas concert, I believe, and did Run Run Rudolph, which Ben melted everyone's faces off. If you go watch back of that clip.
If you dig deep on YouTube, you can find that.
It's out there, people.
Yeah.
Dig for it.
And we started a band called 27 Club. I'm not sure who originally. We've played with a lot of different people, and it's changed so much. But we ended up, the three of us together in Pretty Rotten after all these other incarnations of what 27 Club was and what Pretty Rotten started out as. And everything is just like really clicking for us now, and yeah, history's a long thing to trace back at this point.
Yeah. Ben, you can kind of give a little more about your musical upbringing.
Yeah, no, I have very similar story to them. You know, came up in a family that always was playing music. And my grandfather's a musician, plays clarinet in the Dixieland band, and I just grew up always idolizing him, and that just blossomed into, you know, starting on piano and then eventually insisting to play clarinet, and then that eventually transformed into, I'll never forget when the first time I really realized that I wanted to play rock music was when I tried to play Sweet Child of Mine on my clarinet, and it didn't quite translate. So that really was the first moment. And I started playing drums and then guitar, and then actually I wasn't really a bass player until I met these guys. And Alex played drums, Scott played guitar, I played guitar and drums, so I was like, well, I guess I need to learn how to play bass now. So that was basically at Minuteman, and then thereafter, and we flourished into the project we are now.
Wow. So how long has it been just the three of you?
About 10 years at this point. It'll be 10 years in December.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've got really some established gigs that are kind of giving you multiple opportunities throughout the year. So it sounds like you guys are staying busy.
Oh,
it's been great.
Staying busy, doing a lot of gigs all the way in North Shore, in Boston, and all the way out towards Worcester. Not quite there yet, but
sure. So what do you guys see Pretty Rotten as today? Like when people are coming to your shows and they've never heard of you and they don't know what to expect, what can they kind of expect from you guys?
Who wants to answer that one?
I feel like we've made it kind of hard to define ourselves, and even like people are like, "What's your genre?" Even like something that like general, and you have to be like, "Well," and they put it out there as like rock / alternative / jam / psychedelic. But yeah, we're definitely have become kind of like we dabble in a lot of different sounds and just mix everything. We're kind of like everything and nothing at the same time.
Love that. Okay, so the first track you recorded is Saracillo, and it's one of your earlier originals. Let's give it a listen.
I'm sorry to have taken you from reality and let you see my world. Sometimes I think I'm better off being the sole inhabitant. It's nice to have some visitors every once in a while. Reminisce back to the old times. We'll tell the same old stories every single time, but they won't ever get old. You stay the night if you don't wanna go. You can stay the night, but you have to go home in the morning. When you say goodbye, there'll be dark clouds in my sky. Don't let the raindrop fall from the corner of your eye. Everything comes and goes in its own time. You can't control it, just watch it go by. Sometimes try to see the other side. It was only the present. Everything seemed aligned. Suspended from motion, so flowing, breathing, and alive. At the peak of one common wave, by raining at the same frequency until the event began to be happening. Well, I don't want it to be over. I'm so fucking tired. I want it back to where I started, and I hope this afterglow lasts a little bit longer. stay here too long. I hope I don't stay here too long. Please don't let me stay here too long. I hope I don't stay here too long, too long.
There
you go.
That really was 9 minutes long.
Wow.
That was so fun. That first chord hit, and I was like, oh my God, I've seen this. I know this song. That's awesome. Okay, so what are some of the inspirations behind this song? Like what kind of got you to writing this?
I
And
think, Alex, you can give the
It,
origin. Huh?
it actually came from a lo-fi beat.
okay.
We were at the golf course that was next to our college, hanging out, and I think the beat might have, or I would just be like listening to beats to write lyrics too, because they have no vocals or anything, and this beat came on, and I started having these lines come through and writing them down. I think you even had like a little rough recording of me singing it poorly that day.
Yeah, and I had given you some background vocals because we didn't have any instruments or anything, but I was trying to participate as
Yeah.
well.
The beat was called Memories of Ourselves with Each Other by Tom Paz Beats. And you can't really, if you go back and listen to it, you're like, oh, okay, I guess, yeah, that did come from there. But it was a very simple beat where nothing really happened or changed during it. And we just made this whole thing, and it's become one of our favorite songs to play together.
Yeah, you can feel that in the recording. What was the journey like from that day in the golf course to it being your home base song for concerts?
It definitely started out kind of just like a little fun, silly idea, and I think a lot of our songs really start simple and like it's just like a really rough idea, and we'll just keep playing them and kind of shaping them, and they're kind of, most of the songs are pretty much ever evolving, and each time we play it we're like, do something different. Like you just said, he brought back a part of his solo that he played at Extravaganza in this version of it. But like each time we play it, there's definitely different like pieces that come in and out. Or we even we started like doing a little tease of a part of a Grateful Dead song called Mississippi Half Step in some of the versions, depending on who's in the crowd that day, which is kind of cool to just be able to kind of like make it its own thing each time we play it.
Yeah, do you guys go into that intentionally with concerts or festivals like the Extravaganza Extravaganza Festival? Do you go in there like expecting to play it differently, or just kind of keep a clear mind about it?
I mean, that's one of the reasons why, like, I feel like we kind of hesitate to classify ourselves as a jam band, as I feel like a lot of people do nowadays, because I feel like that term is kind of overused. But, like, you know, we just try not to put too many restraints on the music and try to just sort of let it flow as, like, whatever mood we're in that day will really sort of influence wherever we go. And, you know, we're not necessarily going to be doing, like, a long 20-minute drawn-out jam, but, you know, like, our written songs are pretty long. And then adding on to that, you know, like, if we're really feeling it and just sort of extending it out, and that's really where the meat and potatoes comes up. And and you really, that's where we really feel it a lot. But it's hard to classify that as necessarily, like, fully jamming, because a lot of it is written, but it really takes on a life of its own at each performance.
That song just feels so good when you get into it. It's just like, I think there is even the line like, "I don't want it to be over." So we're just kind of like basking in the euphoria of that song.
Alex's lyrics really bring another dimension, and Scott's lyrics. You guys are both fantastic lyricists, and their lyrics really bring another element to these songs, because like at the core of these songs, I feel like, and why they resonate with so many people is because of the simplicity, and because, you know, everybody can sort of grasp it, and we're not really trying to play too many head games, and the lyrics are really able to be focused on, and that's really a big part of I think why the music is, why people connect with it.
Sure. You just mentioned like the pseudo constraints of implied rules in music. How do you guys, what would you say to someone whose like songs need to be a certain amount of time and a certain kind of like, here's the beginning and here's the climax and here's the exit, like that?
I feel like sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
it's okay, please.
I feel like I am a lot more constrained in the way that I think about things than these guys are. These guys are really like, these guys push me to be a lot more open, and because I'm the kind of person that really wants to come at it like, it's got to sound like this, and I hear it in my head this way, and it's got to be like that. And I feel like I can sometimes rub these guys the wrong way with that. But I think that like these guys are the creative drive of this whole band. I mean, we all are. But I see myself as the person that can just kind of come in and, you know, just like sort of just like bring things together a little bit, and at the end we all the collective vision is where we all meet in the middle, and that's what you hear.
Yeah.
You know,
you can't cut yourself short, because you still have creative input, creative insight that you know, maybe it's something that I'm not thinking about, whether it's like, you know, oh, maybe we should put this note here instead of this note, or let's change up this chord, or you always have a little bit extra add on, and, you know, whether we use it or not, it's still part of that creative force that you bring, and it makes us think about it maybe a little differently, but you know, it comes down to, you know, we got 3 musicians, 3 different perspectives, 3 different experiences, but you got one song or one performance, and it's all about like what we end up bringing it to and what point we're trying to go to. But also another thing with Sarah Silo is that you know, if you look at that first demo version you had at the golf course, or if you look at the version that we put on our first LP, Kill Your Ego, and then you look at how we played it at some of the other shows like Extravaganza or some of our more recent shows, like it's always evolving. There's always something that we're throwing in there differently. Sometimes we'll play that Grateful Dead song in there. Sometimes we won't. That actually happened by accident at one of the first shows that we played at the Jungle with our friend Eric Schindler. He's a saxophone player, also a composer and just a dear friend. But we went into that part just by accident. Alex picked up on it, and then Ben picked up on it, and I was like, I guess we're playing this part, and then it just kind of, you know, came into the form of that song.
I think to go back to your question, a lot of people really put themselves in a rigid box, and it's almost like there's like a formula to making songs, and if it doesn't sound like what you're hearing on the radio or what popular artists are putting out, then it's not right.
Yeah.
When we treat music more like an art in the way that when you're painting a painting, you're not going to make like a brushstroke like, oh, that brushstroke was wrong. I have to throw it all out and start something new. So we'll just let whatever happens happen and kind of just roll with it and flow.
Yeah.
And I think that's just different, and I love the way that we can do that.
Yeah, and that's something we've had to develop. And it's been a point of contention over the years. You know, like we haven't always had that sort of simpatico and the ability to talk to each other. And you know, there's been times in the past where we've really taken stuff a lot more personally than it needed to be, and like I feel like that's been in the times we've had any sort of downfall. That's been it, and sort of that's one of the real things that we tried to focus on when we came back to it and played together again is putting our friendship first and making sure that that's the most important thing in this dynamic, and making sure that any sort of our ideals about what the music should be doesn't get in front of that, because we wouldn't be here if we weren't friends.
Right. That's what makes it enjoyable to watch.
Mm-hmm.
You can really tell. Do you guys have an ideal performance setting? Like, would you rather do a festival where people are up and dancing right in front of you, or in a brewery and more intimate kind of, smaller crowd? What do you prefer?
We've never got to play for like a huge audience yet, and I hope that one day we do, because I mean, it just looks amazing to like have just an ocean of people in front of you and everyone responding to what you're putting out there. To me, my dream would be just to have like an absolute ocean of people out there, and everyone's just vibing on what's happening at that day in our performance. Pearl Jam was one of my big influences, and you can watch their old concerts, and Eddie Vedder is just like commanding this whole crowd, and he's doing all these crazy things, climbing up in the rafters and stuff, and I think that's just like something else that I hope that we can like have that kind of energy build up someday.
You're gonna have to get a really mobile drum set.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you can be climbing.
No, I'm just like,
rafters on drums.
That's like one of my dream, like kind of just like the amount of energy that comes together in those kinds of performances is just unreal. But at the same time, like, we do have a great time. We have a great time playing to two people in an empty bar. Like,
but as far as like the literal space, I mean personally, I love playing outdoors. Like, and there's nothing better than playing a show at just a gorgeous outdoor venue in the summer. And but then at the same time, like, when you get a really great crowd at a bar, it's amazing because you feel that intimacy.
Yeah, and I'll go the middle route. Love to see us play to an ocean full of people, but at the same time, like what Ben's saying, when you get a room full of people that are really vibing, really enjoying your music, that's also really, really just a good place to be. But then, like, I also like, we'll go to open mics and we'll play, it's not a smaller room, but we'll play a little more, a little more restraint, a little more like calm. It's like it's just a little different take, and then at the same time going to those bar rooms or going to breweries, we kind of amp it up a little bit. So it's kind of, I like that good mix of like all of those type of performances.
Yeah, and the fact that you can kind of change the performance every time, it's set for where you are.
We like to be loud, but we don't have to be.
Exactly.
That's great. All right, so let's kind of move on to the second song here. It's called Step Through the Door.
Speaking of loud.
Yeah, okay.
Great transition.
What was the process behind this track?
Alex?
It's kind of me and Alex.
a lot of the time, we'll just be sitting around hanging out, and then Scott will just start playing a riff. And
we literally just wrote a song.
Yeah, we just did it yesterday where Ben starts playing a riff, and my mind, I don't even feel like I write the songs all the time. Like, it just like, the words just like
appear.
are coming. Yeah, I can't. It's hard to explain, but one of these guys will hit me with a riff, and then I'll just like start almost just like rambling, and then all of a sudden we have a song forming, and we're like, oh, this is something here. But Step Through the Door, we were probably just in our basement in our old house in Arlington, and Scott just starts playing the riff, which was like the and I was like, bro, keep playing that, just keep playing that over and over again, and then start writing the lyrics, which I don't remember what the original lyrics were, because those sometimes I write a song and I'm like, that's it, those are the lyrics, that's it, that's like, I couldn't even make it better than that. And then sometimes I'll have like an idea and then be like, okay, we're gonna change some words, reword things, kind of like rearrange it. Step Through the Door just like kind of came out of thin air almost, I feel like.
Yep.
And it's just become more and more massive every time we play it.
Yeah, and like me and Alex recorded a demo of that song at our Uncle Bray's. He has a beach house out in Hull, but we recorded that there, and like it was just like so massive, and like just recording in a basement, but it's also just like the way we recorded it and just how it came out. We didn't have any bass because at the time it was just me and Alex that were down there at the beach house, but the way that form came out, it was just straight 11-minute song and like multiple endings. It was very like open, and then bringing that version and that kind of format to Ben, and we're like, okay, let's see where we can take it, and he kind of formed his own bass line around it too, and just like, you know, he added stuff that I wasn't doing on guitar, and then we're like syncing up together while we're performing it and stuff. It just like, so that's another example of like me and Alex kind of started the foundation of that song. We bring it to Ben, and then what you get on stage or out in a live setting is way different than how me and Alex had written it, or just kind of how it comes together.
That's one of the cool parts of that, like, 'cause they have the twin, you know, psychological connection, but then I'm able to connect with Alex on a rhythm front from the bass, and then I'm also able to connect with Scott on the melodic front, and the communication is always fantastic.
Ties all together.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right, let's give it a listen.
The moon is high in the sky, and so am I. Keep reminding me that I'm alright. I'll be back on the ground. It's just a matter of time, can escape Earth's gravity. Though I try, can you see what I see? Can you feel what I feel? Open the door. Open the to win, but I'm just trying to get into feel the vibe. Tidal waves, earthquakes, hurricanes, climate change, trauma brains, young lives slain, tyrants reign, they point the blame. My heart strains, so much pressure, no way to explain. We all just float along on our own tiny island, but the river doesn't care about your plans. So go ahead, make up your mind, then watch it flow down with the tide. Can't you see what I see? Can't you feel what I feel? Get through the door. Step through the door. Ego games, virus strains, hate is drained. We want change. We need change. We must change. No way to explain. Step through. Step through. Step through the door.
This is what Nick was talking about. He said it sounded like
This song kind of has Jimi Hendrix vibes going on. And you're definitely leaning farther into the rock and roll side of your music. How did you, where did this start? What's the inspiration?
I have no idea where this came from, really.
I think it's all of our, like, rock and roll is just, like, that's all of our, like, passion. So I think that's, like, why we don't really know where it comes from, because it's just, like, so inherent for all of us. So that was really just, like, that just came out.
Yeah.
And I think, like, if you're talking about, like, the riff, like, obviously I kind of came up with the riff, and then it changed as we went, but Gesundheit.
Let's see.
But the riff itself, I would say, is definitely more leaning towards, like, blues and rock. And then as far as, like, what I do, like, with the soloing, it's, like, just a mashup of, like, a lot of different influences. But, like, as you can tell, Jimi Hendrix is one of my biggest influences, as well as Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I think in this particularly, like, I don't know, it's just, like, it's my own voice as the guitar. That's kind of what's coming through. But then, you know, some of the riffs are maybe similar to like Led Zeppelin or I don't know, like the main riff of the song where he goes and says "Step through the door." That one's definitely more like leaning towards the AC/DC style of like of rock and roll. So I think that's kind of where it comes from.
The first time we played the song live was at our friend's farm in New Hampshire, and they had all played their sets, and we went up, and everyone was kind of just like mulling around and not paying too much attention to us. And then we started into this, and like everyone's head just snapped over, and people were coming in out of the woods, and we finished a song, and I think we probably closed with it because we love to close with a song. And we came off the stage, and a kid comes up to us, and he was very drunk, but he was like, "I love this song so much. You guys need to make a whole album of this, just this, the whole time." And we're like, "Well, we'd love to, but I don't even know how we made this, so not sure how we can do a whole album of it, but we'll see what we can do for you." But Step Through the Door is definitely like, it's almost shouldn't be like Step Through the Door. It's like put a battering ram through the door and just like bust the door down. Like it's really something else, and it's an experience for us every time we play it, and I think you can see in the video that we're all just like way in it.
Yep, and then as far as playing this song for the first time, for the three of us, played it for the first time in 2022 at Aeronaut Brewing in Somerville. And matter of fact, we had a 3-hour set. We had the first set, we kind of played some originals and stuff. And then the second set, we played with some of our friends. We had them come up and we did a bunch of covers. And then the third set, we played 2 songs. One song was my song, My Own Way. And then the other song, we played Step Through the Door. And I think at this point, like, we had only played it with Ben maybe like once or twice. Like, he had an idea of the song, but then when we went into it at Aeronaut, it just locked in, and it was just like incredible. And if you go on YouTube, that song's on there, as well as some of the other songs that we played from that Aeronaut performance. But it was just like magic.
We talked earlier about different set lists for different performances. What would the ideal performance venue be for this song?
Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that.
Or
that's a good one,
maybe the Hollywood Bowl.
oh
Sure.
yeah. Yeah, because we thrown a lot of other like connections to this, but when I'm singing this, I'm feeling like I'm channeling Jim Morrison, in vocally at least. That's where I'm kind of drawing from, which it kind of comes through in some ways, but kind of just like his spirit.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I've always, back to the literal translation of the question, I've always wanted to play at the Orpheum in Boston. That's always been a super cool venue that's like literally tucked in an alley, and just like think of all the history that's happened there. But yeah, any of those, like, I think that I personally love, and I think that this probably goes for all of us, any place that has a history, that makes it extra cool. And, anytime you get to know that, any of your heroes have stood on the same stage as you, that's just mind-blowing.
It's a big feeling.
Yeah.
All right. So the third song that we're listening to in the history of Pretty Rotten is It's Love. I'm assuming this is going to be different from the first two. What kind of style are we working with here?
This is a new one.
Yeah, this is this is definitely the newest song out of this set of songs, and one of our recent additions to our set lists. It's kind of
Came out of a conversation. It came out of those conversations that we were just talking about, where we really were talking about like what is the most important things to us, as far as moving forward in this band and stuff. And I think me and Alex were having a conversation, and it was all three of us, but one of us said, I forgot.
I think you said we should just have a whole song about love, and then I went home from practice that day and started just like coming up with these lyrics, and
then all of the musical parts of the songs always start with Scott. Scott is always he's always the beginning of like wherever we go with the chord progression and the feeling of the song, and that's really the soul of it. So whenever it'll always start one of those two ways. Either Scott will have a great riff, or Alex will have some lyrics, and then the other one can just kind of come in. And then it makes my job so easy, because I just have to come in and hear what they're doing, and then just add some bass on top of it.
I definitely said to Scott, let's make this as happy as possible. And I think we did that. It's kind of got like a little bop to it, and like it's kind of funky. Yeah, definitely different from Step to the Door.
Yeah.
And Sarasota.
Love it.
Yep.
All right. Let's give it a listen.
You guys are going to like the ending on this one.
mystery solved, you have no clue. Put down your microscope, align your perspective, expand your views, see the full picture. Endless, unconditional, all enveloped in love. Think about it long enough, and you realize it's love. It's love. Everything dissolves into love. Grass exhales, the sky smiles down on you, and you up at it. A bird sings along to the melody of the wind. You lay back, hold on to the earth, embrace the fact of randomness. You are not yet meant to know. Endless, unconditional, all enveloped in love. Think about it long enough, and you realize it's love. It's love. Love, 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 love. It's love.
Okay, Jimmy.
Easily.
Flow.
So fun. And so different.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a change of pace.
Yeah. Well, not like crazy different. Like it's clearly you guys really have a sound here. It's kind of amazing you can do all these different genres and still very much be yourself.
Thank you.
That is a real gift. So you guys started out with toy instruments and you learned and the band has changed names and it's changed people and you've performed at all these different venues and different songs. Can you each tell me one of your favorite memories from your time with Pretty Rotten?
My favorite performance ever was Arlington Porch Fest 2018. That was just something entirely different. We've never done anything else like that.
That's the thing. Like, I've spent so much time with these guys that it feels like my entire life is a memory with them. But I would have to say probably the first gig back playing with them. Like, when was it? It would have been like last year? Or was it this year? Was it still this year? That's the thing. Like, I don't. Beginning of this year, yeah, no. Like, being back on stage with these guys and sort of returning to this form was just I'll always be happy that we reconciled and that we're here where we are now.
And as far as my favorite performance, it's got to be Extravaganza out in Greenfield, Mass. This year. It was just like a perfect day, and just the songs that we played were all super tight. We're all just like up there, just vibing, and like I brought a wireless system for my guitar, and on Sarasilo when we played it during that, I went out into the crowd over to our friends that were there, and I played a solo for them, but also for the crowd and stuff, and it was just a wild experience.
That's dope.
Yep.
Yeah, we truly will mix pretty much any genre that we feel is the right feeling for the day, or we even were doing like straight up hip hop covers for a while. Like I went through a period where I was way into Chance the Rapper during like the acid rap days back in 2014, 15, around there. And we were doing a mashup of his songs, Brain Cell, which was from his first album, 10 Day, and then going into some of the other acid rap songs. And
We'd cover Acid Rain.
yeah.
And then you'd also cover Same Drugs,
Yeah,
which is on his third album.
Yeah, the third album. So
I think we owe a lot to Chance,
Yeah.
just like for bringing us into the same sort of like mindset back when you guys were in college and I was hanging out at your college, not in college.
yeah. And I definitely like was pushed by his songwriting to like the way that he used to write songs was just so free, and he would just talk about anything that came to his mind, or that I was inspired by that and started just like, I started doing a thing which I call free writing in my phone. Every year I start a page just free writing in the year, and anytime some like line or something comes in my head, I'll just write it down. And then sometimes I can go on for like paragraphs. Sometimes it's a line or two, but that's where most of my song ideas come out of. Yeah.
Have you been songwriting your whole life? Or is this something that's kind of naturally started happening now that you have a band?
I mean, I've definitely always been writing poems, which then like once we got into like listening to like T-Pain and Lil Wayne, started turning into raps, and then like from there, obviously once I started getting into music and started learning music, I started like kind of writing my own songs. And like at the beginning of Pretty Rotten, we had maybe like 2 or 3 songs, and our original singer, who is no longer in the band, but he had written a bunch of songs previously to joining Pretty Rotten, and he brought those forth to us. Like, we listened to them, we learned them, we performed them and stuff, but it wasn't technically like our music, even though we helped write some of the riffs and stuff and kind of bring those to a different light. But once he ended up leaving the band, we went back to our original songs. We went back to some of our stuff we had previously written, and then written some new songs, and then that's just kind of how it went. And like through the years, like me and Alex kind of learned how to play our instruments and sing at the same time, which was something that we really had a tough time with at the beginning of this whole journey. But being able to do that, and then being able to sing and play and write your songs, it just makes the whole process so much better, and it helps us take the lyrics and put it with the music and just like really bring it all together.
Yeah. Poetry was definitely always a thing, even early for me. I remember in elementary school, I wrote a poem about, it was like a social commentary too, which I don't even know if I knew what I was talking about at the time, but like it was something about how there were so many banks and big apartment buildings being built in my hometown, and I had submitted it into like a poetry contest, and randomly they announced my name over the loudspeaker as being put into the magazine because I had won the thing, and it was a cool thing, and I definitely always appreciated writing and the art form of poetry.
I don't know if I knew that story.
He just reminded me when he said poetry. I was like, oh wait, yeah, that was a deep one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ben, what about you? When did you kind of start writing music or poems, words?
I definitely have not. Words always have escaped me as far as like writing. That's always been one of the hardest parts. As musically, I'm always thinking of ideas, and I feel like I always have things swirling around in my head. But I do have some songs, like we play one of my songs called Hippie Soul, and I've definitely, when I do write songs, it feels very much like what Alex described, where it's just like, it's almost like you just have this sort of moment where something touches you and you just sort of like word vomit all over. And it's definitely one of those where you can't really plan on it happening or see it coming, but when it does, that's where they usually come from.
Wow. You guys are all very talented. I hope you know that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that does it for episode 2 of The Performers. Thank you, Alex, Scott, and Ben, for coming back to give us the rundown on some of your favorite tracks. Let us know where we can find your music and content, and we'll send you off.
You can find us, our big social, I hate doing social media because it's just like, you end up scrolling and wasting a lot of time, but if you want to find us on social media, look us up on Instagram at Pretty Rotten.
If you're not on Instagram, you can go to Facebook. We got some good stuff up on there.
We're also on pretty much every streaming service. We upload our stuff through DistroKid, and it puts it out everywhere. So no matter what you got, you can find us.
Yeah, so like, your typical ones, iTunes, Spotify. We're also on Amazon Music if you're on there. I don't know. And then all of our music, especially some of our old demos, those are still on SoundCloud and Bandcamp. So if you're still on those platforms, check it out.
But despite all that, come see us in real life, because we want to see you.
Yeah, what he said.
Yeah, come see us in real life, because that's how you get the real Pretty Rotten experience.
Love
For
it.
real.
Did you guys want to plug your song?
We are going to be putting out one of the songs from these sessions as a little bit of a teaser, so you'll be able to check that out before the podcast drops in 2 weeks. So look forward to that.
Sweet. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming in. I can't wait to see more from you guys, and thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
having us. Peace.
So fun.
Peace.
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 Great job, guys.